parents are struggling to balance work, childcare, and self-care while keeping worries, both your children's and your own, under control. You don't have to do it alone. We reached out to a local pediatrician in our community to talk about some things that will not only help your children, but will also help yourselves, whether your child is an in-person learner or a remote one. I would like to introduce Dr. Kavanaugh. He is the owner of Chisholm Trail Pediatrics, with 2 offices, one located in Georgetown and one located in Round Rock. Thank you for joining us today, Dr. Kavanaugh.
Thanks for having me.
Dr. Kavanaugh, we want to encourage parents and their children to maintain healthy habits during the pandemic. With the closure of schools in March, which continued into summer vacations, students and parents may have been off their typical schedules for nearly 5 total months. Can you speak to the importance and health benefits of getting back into a schedule for kids, such as like maintaining a routine or a consistent sleep schedule?
This has been tough, right? With my patients, I tell them, talk about the longest spring break ever, right? And we don't even have a summer break. It's just a huge spring break. Kids are really, this is a very challenging time. Interestingly, because it's been a long time away from school, it has been something that has been almost 2 sides of one coin. On one side, it's really fun, right? It's been enjoyable. The kids have had a lot more free time. On the other hand, the greatest blessing has been a curse in some ways, because that lack of routine, that extended time of lack of routine, has really taken a toll on my patients. It can lead towards boredom. It can lead towards anxiety. It can lead towards depression. So those things that we think that aren't as fun are actually things that keep a natural rhythm for us to help our mental health. So routine, like having a normal schedule, having a normal wake up time, having a relatively normal bedtime where you go to bed about the same time every night, getting a good night's sleep, having an idea of what each day is going to entail. Those things are actually very helpful to our mental health. And it's been something I've been really encouraging my families, especially now with school on its way, to really start getting into the rhythm of the day with their children.
Okay, thank you for that. We are all fairly aware that exercise and nutrition are important in our everyday lives. Can you speak to the importance of nutrition and exercise in the context of COVID-19?
So I think we can all say that we've put on COVID weight, right? Like I see things on social media where people talk about how they've gotten in the best shape of their lives during this pandemic. I haven't seen that in our practice, and I certainly have had difficulty myself. I think one of the first things that we often go to when we've had difficulty and stress are stress relieving, comforting things. Food is a comfort for a lot of us. So it's natural that we gravitate towards comforting activities, whether that's food or watching a lot of TV, or for my patients, lots of video games. These are things, again, while they seem comforting to us, can also, too much of a good thing can be bad. And so what happens is, if we continue to eat in a weekend way, it develops habits that are difficult to break, first of all, and it actually decreases our overall energy levels and can increase our risk for developing illnesses. More importantly, exercise. Exercise is, I think, the most important thing a family can do or an individual can do to help A, prevent illness, and B, treat their mental health. It's extremely important for our mental health to get exercise every day. It is a very important way for the body to cope with stress. So I think that it is extremely important when we're talking about routine, having that routine include a general healthy eating plan that involves fruits and vegetables, drinking plenty of water, and then exercise on a routine basis. I think having at least 5 days a week, I'd prefer 6 days a week, of at least 30 minutes a day of actual exercise. Staying active and being outside, playing with your siblings, splashing around in your backyard pool, those are good things, but also exercise. And unfortunately, a lot of the exercise that we usually have, whether it be through sports in the summer, through camps, or during the school year that we didn't get at the end of last school year through sports, those avenues for exercise have been removed. So we have to be creative and find other ways in which to exercise.
I could not agree more as a nurse. As a district, GISD will now be a one-to-one district, and we are very blessed to have that ability to do that, which means all of our students will have access to either an iPad or a Chromebook. As students, though, are increasing their screen time, what advice can you offer to parents about setting healthy limits for their children in their screen time?
That is such a challenge. I think of all the things that I see on the horizon, and I also saw with my own children when they had extended, they actually spent up to 8 hours a day doing just classroom time at the end of last year on their screens. It is very difficult. It's challenging for two reasons. One, that those screen limits that we usually have are far exceeded already just through school, and a necessary evil, if you will. And second, the way we socialize right now, the way our students and patients are able to socialize is often through screens. As we're trying to social distance and be careful, a lot of our social interactions involve meetings just like this. Or, you know, for guys, honestly, video games seem to be a very common social avenue. And I have girls, my daughter, she's been able to keep up with her friends through video games recently and chat on the video games. So I think we need to give ourselves some measure of grace and understanding that. But I think what's really important isn't how much limit we pick, but that we pick a limit. Because I feel like that helps put boundaries, again, back to that routine and boundaries that help us thrive best. I think parents, we may need to course correct, like, oh, wow, we overdid it. We let them have too many hours a day, or we didn't have them enough. But I think those having a limit that you decide as a family can be very important. And I also think that's a way to encourage other activities and be creative on other activities. And also, it's a good carrot, you know, if they can earn more time through doing other activities, right? And so I think having a limit that you start from that you can extend through earning it. Anytime you have some positive reinforcement motivation can be quite helpful.
Okay, let's talk about stress. Can you talk about some of the concerns for ongoing stress in the human body? We all know this is a very stressful time, as well as some healthy outlets for students and parents to relieve stress.
So stress in kids can look different than in adults. Often, so stress has physical effects. That mind-body connection is absolutely seen. I want to think the easiest ways we see it, one of the clearest ways we see it is in adults. We see our blood pressure go up. Blood pressure can be a reflection of stress. Whether it's emotional or physical stress, the body responds through increased blood pressure. Kids have the similar effect. In adults, we often see headaches, right? Headaches is headache is a common reflection of stress. In children, it's the stomach. The GI system seems to be more affected. So if you're noticing that your kid has stomach symptoms, it can oftentimes it's not an illness, oftentimes it's a reflection of stress. And so, like you said, it's extremely important to make sure that we address that overall stress level. One thing I've seen with patients is when the overall stress level is higher, then the margin for seeing it come out through outbursts is lower. There's less margin, right? And so it's kind of like a bathtub. If you fill the bathtub all the way to the top, any kind of movement at all, you're going to have overflow. So what we want to do is decrease, like you're saying, decrease the level of water in the bathtub so that there's more margin. So the ways to do that, I would say, I've always find myself challenging families to not use the screen as a primary way to decrease stress. We all go to screens. We all like binge watching TV. We all like doing those things. Those are fine, and there's nothing wrong with those. But I would have other primary ones that you have up front that you can go to, because those are an easy way in the backdrop to go to. So have some other ones up front. Exercise, obviously. I think being outside is extremely important. I know it's hot. Let's go in the mornings, those in the evenings. Going around water so we can cool off, whether even it's just a hose or a sprinkler, being outside is really helpful. Vitamin D and just soaking in some sunshine really is quite helpful. So I think being outside is one of those critical things. I think discovering hobbies that we enjoy. I think that being a student of our children, having them be a student of themselves to find out what it is that you like to do. Some children discover arts that they didn't, that artistic abilities they didn't know they had, or that they had interests in. So I think art is an opportunity. I think a musical instrument. I think a lot of people are picking up their guitar and dusting it off, or picking up a guitar for the first time, or playing the piano. So I think art and music, drawing, writing, getting outside.
Okay, we have students that are going to be at school and wearing masks. Would you be able to show us the proper way to wear a mask?
So that's a great question. It's a loaded question because there's different kinds of masks and they're worn different kinds of ways, and we take care of them in different kinds of ways. So let me give a brief primer on masks and what they do and don't do. So I have several masks with me. This is the more common mask we see out and about, right? We've got these cloth masks, right? It's a cotton mask. Mine is got some superheroes on it. One of our doctor's moms made it for me. I love it. It's got all sorts of superheroes on it. But this is a cloth mask, right? It's got the little straps. On these, the key to wearing it is there's no seal, right? So there's really not a seal that you're looking for. But you want to make sure that you cover both your nose and mouth, right? And that's the key. Typically, they go behind the ears. There are some people who have sensitivity with their ears. There are some straps to help relieve that sensitivity, so you can get those little straps that go on the back. I don't seem to have that problem, so I just wear them classic. The key is they sag down, right? So you got to keep making sure it covers the nose. That is critical. So that's cloth mask. I'll talk more about cloth masks in a second on cloth care, on care of masks. Now this is the surgical mask, is what we call it. It's, you know, two different sides. Doesn't matter which side you wear. Doesn't matter. You do want to make sure there is a top and a bottom. That's key. So the top has a wire on it. The bottom does not. Top goes over your nose. You want to pinch it on your nose. You're not going to get a perfect seal, but the more seal you get, the more protected you and people around you are. These two masks protect other people from you, right? So that is the purpose of wearing masks in public, is to protect other people. They possibly protect you to some degree, right? The primary goal, though, is to protect other people. The reason I say that is you still want to make sure that you're doing a good job of keeping space, because this doesn't protect you 100%. Third type of mask, this is the Cadillac. This is the grail of masks right here. And thankfully, as a healthcare provider, I have access to one, but they're still very rare to come by. This is an N95 mask. See the N95? This actually protects the wearer from aerosol-borne agents, right? So this, usually they have two straps. You're gonna put both straps on. One strap goes above the ears, one strap goes below the ears. It also has a pinch top, and you want to get as much seal as possible. The difference on these is, quite honestly, if you are around sick people a lot, if you're a healthcare provider, actually you're supposed to get mask fitted. These are supposed to be fitted each time you get a new one. That's impractical. If anybody who has these in school, just make sure you get a really good seal and you're constantly pinching so that it keeps the air in. I wear this all day long. So I don't think it's fair for people to say they can't breathe in these, because in general, you can breathe through these. I have asthma. I wear it all day long. It's not fun. It's not comfortable, but you can wear a mask all day long. And if you're complaining about one of these masks, I don't want to hear it, because I have to wear one of these masks all day long.
Do you have any
masks all day, because I keep this on top of it because it's cuter.
Do you have any suggestions about how parents can talk to their smaller children about the need to wear masks?
Yes. So a lot of times I think humor can be helpful. I think describing it as cooties, so we don't want to get cooties, and smells and floating germs, and say that we want to protect other people. When we sneeze, we cover it with a Kleenex. When we cough, we cover it with our hands. But when we breathe, we need to have a mask on to help other people. So I think that's important. They do have videos on YouTube where you can watch where it shows little descriptions of little dots floating around. But I think the main thing is I like to use cooties as an example because I think it's silly, it's funny, it keeps the fear factor away, but importance of it.
How often are we supposed to wash our masks? I think parents are very interested in knowing how we need to care for our kids' masks while they're at school and when they come home each day.
And so that's where the difference, that's a great question. It's a difference in types of masks. So cloth masks should be washed every day, once a day. So it kind of like having a different mask for every day is kind of a, you know, fashion thing, right? Fortunately, this is cloth, so you should be able to come by this, right? So there shouldn't be if it's ideally to have 5 of these, right? And we wash them every day, and so you can change them out. So you have 5 masks that you change each day. You can even have a mask that says Monday on it, who knows? But once a day, wash these. You can't wash these. These are great. In fact, these actually filter better than these. These are a step up. These are better than these are. However, you can't wash these, and so the recommendation is changing these out when they're visibly dirty. I can't imagine that after a full day these wouldn't be visibly dirty, but these are, if you notice visible dirt, they need to be changed. Here's the challenge. If you happen to be lucky enough to have N95, if it's visibly dirty, that would be a good point to change it. Man, these are like gold, so I'll be honest, I don't change mine out as often. But one way to store them is very helpful is in a paper bag. So what one recommendation is if you're able to get more than one, you alternate and put the one that you're storing the next day in a paper bag for a couple days, so you alternate the 2 or 3 or even ideally 4. But if you have more than one, you're doing really well in life, and make sure you use a paper bag to store them.
Okay, we've all watched those TV shows with the doctors when they're scrubbing to go into the OR. What's a typical approach for our students as they wash their hands properly?
Great question. Thankfully, no one in school should be scrubbing in for any kind of surgical procedure. So you don't have to do the full betadine up to the elbows and let somebody else help you put on sterile gloves and stuff like that. It goes back to the classic 15 seconds. We really, whether it's singing the happy birthday or singing the ABC songs or something like that, the key is to have a really good thorough and getting it on both sides, getting in between the fingers, scrubbing under the nails too, like just trying to get under the nails a little bit. You don't need to use a fingernail brush like they use in the TV shows, but if you can wash your hands for 15 seconds, making sure you get the full area, really aggravating your hands up, and then rinsing off. One thing I do want to bring up with washing is your face with the mask. I forgot to mention this. When you one of the things that can be challenging with patients or anyone wearing a mask at all times, you can get acne or irritation, and that's because you're rebreathing the humidity. And so one thing that's important is using a gentle cleanser twice a day. I would recommend like Cetaphil face cleanser. It's something more gentle. It helps to rehydrate the skin because there's a lot of that, even though we're breathing a lot of moisture, it's kind of not the right kind. So I think using a gentle cleanser twice a day to wash our face, really helpful. Girls are going to hate when I say this, but if you're noticing that you're developing any kind of skin irritation or acne, makeup and masks don't go very well together. And so the recommendation is if you're wearing a mask, don't wear makeup. That's why you don't see any blush or foundation on me today.
I know girls are going to love to hear that, especially our high school and middle school girls.
Right. My daughter is already a big fan of that one.
Are there any other common questions or concerns that you think our GISD community would like to know about?
You know, I want to reassure people. The question I get the most is, do I think that we should even have should we have kids go to school right now? And it's obviously an understandable question because with the numbers continuing to have spiked, and it looks like they're starting to tail off, thankfully, but they've spiked. And the severity of the illness in the elderly, and a lot of us are no elderly people, whether it's family members or friends, and the concern of staff people, teachers and staff that have to work. it's a very valid question. And I don't think it is a black or white issue. And the thing that I see the most that gets me is that I feel like we need to have a nuanced approach and not a black or white look at this. It's not if you think kids should be in school, that means you want people to die. I think that's not necessarily true. We want kids to be in school because it's the best place for them to learn. On the other hand, if we look and say all kids should be in school and there's no risk whatsoever, I think that's not nuanced enough either. I think if we look at studies from South Korea, we see that there is an age differential. And thankfully, the kids that are slightly more at risk for getting sick from COVID and slightly more at risk for spreading it to other people are the ones that are more capable of being able to do online and distance learning. The teenagers, they're capable of not having to have someone help them set up a Zoom account or whatnot, or set up each Zoom meeting. The younger kids like kindergartners and things, those children that are typically more at risk for illness, right? Flu and RSV, and we're like, man, those are the fragile ones. They're not fragile to COVID. Those kids are warriors, thankfully. For some reason, they are almost non-existent on the risk factors for with COVID. And so those that probably need to be would benefit most from being in school once school starts going again are the ones that thankfully are the ones that least at risk for spreading and getting ill.
Well, I would like to thank you for meeting with me and taking this time so we can get this information out to our parents in the GISD community.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much, and you have a great day.
You too. All right.